All right, what is Sig feeding the 365? It keeps getting bigger. I've got the new Sig FUSE, a unique PDW stock from Strike Industries, and the new Breek-LOK suppressor mounting system on this week's Gear Grind. Mix of guns and gear today. All stuff I was curious about, mostly because I want to measure them against everything else on the market. 5 F's when it comes to today's gun gear: fit, feel, form, function, and features. And I'm gonna try and get through it in about 5 minutes. Let's roll. Let's start with the P365-FUSE, the X Macro's slightly overgrown sibling with a full-size feel and slimline comfort. The P365-FUSE is basically a P365 X Macro with a longer barrel and slide, but retains that super sleek profile of the 365. As such, pretty much only X Macro magazines are going to be compatible if you already have some. But the FUSE comes with a 17-round flush fit magazine plus 2 21-round extended mags out of the box, which is awesome. It also has an RMSC pattern optics plate on the slide, which gets you in with basically any compact red dot on the market, with a Picatinny rail for a light up front. Otherwise, it is a 365, so there's a lot of aftermarket components you can swap in if you choose to modify it. And of course, that fire control unit you can move between grip modules should you choose. First time I got the FUSE into my hands, I was honestly pretty blown away. This thing is thin, like a concealed carry gun ought to be, and because of the full-size form factor, it's just super comfortable in the hand. The stippling on the grip is very positive, without feeling like it's trying to eat my hand, unlike my CCP10C. And the trigger feels perfectly serviceable. It's not a match trigger, doesn't really need to be. Plus, the recoil impulse is much less snappy than a regular P365, and with that full grip and a longer slide and recoil spring, it's comfortable. And the magazine well makes reloads nice and fast. Form. For being yet another all-black polymer frame handgun, the FUSE does look a little funky just because there's a few differences to the base P365. The forward and rear serrations on the slide are wider and deeper than base models, and there's the grip texturing obviously, and the slide extending beyond the frame does call attention to how long this slide feels compared to the frame. I mean, it has a longer barrel and slide than the P320 Compact, and it's still this thin and has more baseline capacity. But there's no issues with the finish, just a lot of new texture and what feels slightly unusual proportions for its size. Function. Pretty much what you'd expect from a new variation on an existing, well-proven and well-loved concealed carry. No real issues with this one. All the magazines feed really well. There's a smoother recoil impulse than its true subcompact brethren, and the sights are pretty easy to pick up with the fiber optic front and the blacked out rear. The gun works. It's easy to use, but there is a little quirk. The slide does not close on an empty magazine. Sig apparently has some marketing out there that this is to make sure you don't accidentally reload with an empty magazine, but that feels like a nothing issue to me. Doesn't bother me, I guess, but it's weird. Features. A lot like the X Macro, I think the biggest feature here is the sheer capacity you're getting with this pistol combined with that super comfortable slimline frame. This is basically a full-size gun that's thin enough to concealed carry, with plenty of ammunition and velocity through that 4.3-inch barrel. Optics ready, of course, and a good set of iron sights. This gun fits the bill for a wide range of applications. And of course, you can modify it to your heart's content. Moving into the AR world, I've got the Viper PDW stock, spring-loaded and ready to strike. Fit. This PDW stock will fit on pretty much any standard AR lower, no big surprise there. You do have to replace the entire back end of your rifle though. Seriously, buffer tube, castle nut, end plate, it all has to go in order to make this work. You do get a flat wire buffer spring and a super short buffer to go with all this equipment though. Quick word to the wise, make sure you stick with standard low profile takedown pins on your rifle. The 2 rods that this stock uses cover up those areas and make the safety a little tight, so just be aware of that. Feel. Not gonna lie, PDW stocks like this are really cool, but I always think the weight to benefit ratio is a bit off. You've got mostly aluminum construction here, but there's a lot of material plus those steel rods with internal springs. Now, despite the weight difference, it does do its job very well as a very compact stock when it's deployed, and the cheek piece is surprisingly comfortable when you have it shouldered. You can see here I can get a decent cheek weld, and that's not something you get with every PDW stock on the market. Form. This is what Strike Industries is known for, right? There's an undeniable cool factor when it comes to a stock that looks this good with a unique functionality to boot. The lines flow nicely to an AR receiver, and at the back of the stock you have this machining that's reminiscent of a snake's belly scales. That, combined with the fact that you can just push a button to fully extend the stock, this is perfect for a short barrel AR setup, and I'm here for it, at least aesthetically. Function. This is one of those things that's going to greatly depend on how you set up your rifle beyond the stock. For our shop build this time, we didn't have too many issues with the stock deploying or the rifle cycling. The recoil spring is very stout, the buffer weight is very small, so depending on your upper, your performance envelope may be tighter than you're used to. Especially if you plan to run suppressed or generally have an overgassed upper, do consider snagging an adjustable gas block from Superlative Arms or Wojtek Weaponry. This is a surprisingly comfortable setup for a PDW stock, and when you combine this with a short barrel, you can end up with a super compact AR that actually performs. If you're a backpack or bag gun enjoyer, you can set this up with a short barreled upper and have something really compelling that you can potentially go suppressed with. Just so you're aware, you can get this with a stabilizing brace instead of the full stock if you don't want to shell out $200 for a tax stamp just to play with this thing. Well, we got the butt, let's jump to the tip with the new Breek-LOK suppressor mounting system and how it stacks up to more popular options on the market. Fit. Most important thing here is to understand what the Breek-LOK does. It's a quick detached suppressor mounting platform, similar to Chemo, ASR, or the good old tri-lug adapter you see on MP5s. Breek-LOK is a 2-lug adapter and will fit any suppressor on the market that uses the Hub Universal 1 3/8 by 24 threads, basically the industry standard for QD cans. So you can mount this system on basically whatever you want, and Breek's compatible muzzle devices just go on your barrel, whether you've got an AR-15 or an AR-10. Just choose the correct threads for your barrel, whether you want the muzzle brake or the flash hider. I will say, when you're installing the mount to your suppressor, you do need a 37mm socket wrench with a 1/2-inch drive. I had a little trouble installing this at first because I didn't read the instructions, so that's on me. Feel. One thing you'll notice with the Breek-LOK system is it's a lot lighter than a lot of QD setups. For example, a lot of people use dead air Chemo. The muzzle device you might get with a can might weigh about 4 ounces, and the adapter is 4.3 ounces. 8.3 ounces total, over a 1/2 pound before factoring in the can itself. Because the Breek-LOK uses some titanium components in the mount, a Breek-LOK flash hider and mount is only 4.5 ounces total, barely over half the weight of a similar Chemo setup. Especially if you're trying to save weight up front, these savings matter. Form. So once you've got a suppressor mounted, there's not a lot to see on the Breek-LOK, but you do have a clean design that doesn't really look out of place on any of the Hub compatible suppressors on the market. It's got a matte diamond-like carbon finish, so it's robust, easy to clean, and looks nice with basically any all-black suppressor. Not really an aesthetic thing, but you do also have laser engraving to tell you which direction is going to be tighter or looser on your can when you're mounting it to your rifle. Now, unlike a lot of other suppressors that clearly show the springs on the inside of the QD mount, all of that is captured within, so it looks a bit cleaner there as well. Function. It's hard to judge the performance of a mounting platform, but I can tell you that the Breek-LOK was fairly easy to install and appeared to do its job perfectly well. I've got it attached to a 30 cal can on the table here, and there's been no issues from what I can see with the mount getting loose. Likewise, the gas seals are good and tight, so there's not been a lot of carbon buildup, which is something Breek designed into the gas seals for this mount. Do bear in mind, this system is only rated for .308 rifles at its limit. Getting into bigger bores or higher pressure Wildcat cartridges is probably not on the menu. But for a standard 5.56 AR-15 and trying to keep things light, this works just fine. Features. For me, I think the weight loss compared to a lot of your more established QD suppressor system is the biggest draw for the Breek-LOK. Losing about a ¼ pound on the front of your rifle may not sound like a lot, but to cite the old adage, ounces equal pounds and pounds equal pain. If you're running a can on a typical AR, you're already looking at adding a pound or more up front. If you're running a laser aiming module, a light, foregrips, and any other gubbins on your rail, that stuff adds up. And the Breek-LOK might be able to save a little weight and improve how your fighting rifle handles. Kind of an odd duck episode mixing a gun and some interesting pieces of gear, but I hope you found something useful or interesting from this video. I definitely have a few things I'm thinking about for future builds. And as always, if there's an AR or pistol upgrade you want me to go hands-on with, drop a comment below. I'll give you my honest take on it in a future video. Peace.